It was a rainy Friday night in downtown Atlanta. The city lights blurred against the downpour as people hurried under umbrellas. But there he was, Ethan Cole, standing in the rain, holding a small box in his hand. Inside was the wristwatch his late father gave him, engraved with the words, "Loyalty outlives gold." Ethan's phone buzzed. It was his boss, Mr. Donovan, barking, "Where the hell are you? You were supposed to submit the proposal an hour ago." Ethan's soaked lips trembled. He had just left the hospital, where his mother's medical bills had drained the last of his savings. But even then, he chose to stay loyal to his job, loyal to the man who underpaid him, loyal to the company that saw him as a disposable tool. The camera would zoom on his weary eyes, not weak, not broken, just tired of being loyal to people who never saw his worth. And that night, under the Atlanta rain, Ethan had no idea that his loyalty, the very thing that broke him, would soon become his crown. Monday morning hit like a hammer. Ethan's office smelled of burnt coffee and frustration. His colleagues gossiped about him being the company's errand boy. He smiled anyway. He believed in loyalty, believed that hard work would eventually speak. His girlfriend, Samantha, didn't share that faith. "Ethan," she said one evening over dinner, "you keep giving and all they do is take. Loyalty is beautiful, but not when it costs you your dignity." He chuckled. "Sam, you don't stop being good because others aren't." She sighed, realizing she loved a man too kind for the world he lived in. Then came the twist. Ethan discovered a confidential email. His boss had taken credit for Ethan's $1 million marketing idea. The idea that could have earned him a promotion and saved his mother's life. Still, Ethan didn't expose him. He thought maybe loyalty will still pay off someday. But the world was watching, and destiny was sharpening its edges. Weeks later, Ethan stood in front of his apartment door, eviction notice pinned to it. His mother's condition worsened. Samantha packed her things. "You love people who don't even think about you," she said through tears. That night, Ethan walked to the old bridge by the river, the same place his father used to take him fishing. He whispered, "Dad, how do I keep being loyal when loyalty keeps breaking me?" The only reply was the sound of rain and city sirens in the distance. Then a call came through. A deep, calm voice said, "Mr. Cole, I'm from Horizon Capital. We've reviewed your proposal, and it seems someone else presented it as theirs. Would you care to explain?" Ethan froze. The truth was finally catching up. Fate had opened its door, and this time he wasn't walking away. The next day, Ethan walked into the Horizon Capital boardroom. Men in suits watched him like hawks. Mr. Donovan sat across the table, confident, sipping espresso. Ethan presented every file, every timestamp, every late-night email that proved the idea was his. The room fell silent. Mr. Donovan's smirk faded. When the CEO asked, "Why didn't you report this earlier?" Ethan simply said, "Because loyalty taught me patience." But patience shouldn't mean silence. The board erupted in quiet respect. Ethan walked out of that room not as an employee, but as a man reclaiming his worth. That day, he didn't just expose corruption. He exposed what it costs to stay loyal to the wrong people. And for the first time, loyalty didn't make him weak, it made him powerful. Ethan didn't celebrate. Instead, he went home to find his mother's hospital room empty. The nurse handed him a letter. She had passed away that morning, peacefully, after hearing that her boy finally found his courage. He sank to the floor, shattered. His loyalty had cost him time he could never get back. Samantha called, sobbing, "I'm sorry, Ethan," but her voice faded into static. Ethan spent days in silence. He visited his mother's grave and whispered, "Maybe I was loyal to pain, not purpose." Then he opened his laptop, the same one where he built the proposal. He started again. Not for Donovan. Not for anyone else. But for the mother who believed he was destined for more. That night, a spark was born. The seed of a legacy. At first, Amelia didn't touch the money. But with her mother's health declining, she finally used part of it for treatment. Then took a risk. She enrolled in a design course in Manhattan. Months passed. She worked double shifts and studied at night. She started designing small pieces, aprons for her coworkers, scarves for customers, until one of Alexander's business associates noticed her talent. Alexander didn't say a word, but quietly sponsored her first small exhibition. When she found out, she was furious. "You can't just buy my dreams," she shouted. "I'm not buying them," he said softly. "I'm giving them room to breathe." That night, Amelia cried, not out of anger, but gratitude. The story of the billionaire and the waitress spread like wildfire. Paparazzi swarmed the restaurant. Gossip blogs twisted their story into scandal, calling her a gold digger and him a fool blinded by pity. Amelia almost quit. The whispers cut deep, but Alexander called her to his office, a glass tower overlooking all of Manhattan. "Let them talk," he said. "You owe the world nothing. Just keep building." He handed her a small black box. Inside was a gold pen engraved with her name. "Sign your first brand deal with this," he said. "You'll need it soon." And he was right. 1 year later, Aimreed Designs launched online, a minimalist fashion brand inspired by her journey. The first week's sales broke records. Influencers wore her designs. Magazines featured her story as "From Waitress to CEO." And at the launch event, Alexander stood quietly in the back, clapping as her name filled the room. When she found him afterward, she said, "You changed my life." He smiled faintly. "No. You just needed someone to believe you could." It wasn't until months later that Amelia learned the full truth. The hospital that had treated her mother had received an anonymous donation, enough to cover years of medical bills. She traced it back and found Alexander's signature, hidden under his company foundation. When she confronted him, he only said, "You can't heal others if you're still broken. I just helped you find your strength." She broke down in tears. And that night, as they stood under the glowing city skyline, Amelia whispered, "You're not the man they say you are." He smiled sadly. "Maybe not, but you're the woman I always knew you could be." The ballroom shimmered under 1,000 crystal lights that hung like frozen raindrops from the ceiling. It was the 10th anniversary of Aimreed Couture, and the entire fashion world had gathered to celebrate the woman who had redefined elegance and resilience. Amelia Reed. Cameras flashed. Champagne flowed. The soft hum of conversation filled the air, mixing with music from a live jazz band that played in the background. Behind the glamour, Amelia stood near the stage, gazing at the crowd in disbelief. She still remembered the nights she'd scrubbed plates and served tables at the Golden Table restaurant. Back then, her uniform had smelled of detergent and coffee. Now, she was wearing one of her own creations, a flowing ivory gown with golden embroidery, simple yet powerful, the kind of design that whispered, "I've made peace with my past." But success had never changed her heart. The warmth that once shone through tired eyes now radiated with gratitude. Her assistant, Maya, leaned close and whispered, "They're all waiting for your speech, Amelia." Amelia smiled nervously, clutching a gold pen in her hand, the same one Alexander Knight had given her years ago. The engraved letters had faded slightly, but every time she touched it, she felt his words echo. "Sign your first brand deal with this. You'll need it soon." That pen had signed contracts worth millions now, but to her it was still a symbol of belief. Not in her brand, but in herself. As the lights dimmed and her name was announced, Amelia stepped onto the stage. The applause was thunderous. Cameras panned, journalists scribbled notes, and flashes of light turned the room into a galaxy of admiration. But as she scanned the crowd, her heart skipped. At the far end of the ballroom, near the corner where the chandeliers cast a soft golden glow, sat Alexander Knight. Older now, his hair sprinkled with silver, his face calm, reflective, like a man who had finally learned to rest. He hadn't changed much in Spear,